and welcome to the Sounds of Stadia podcast, episode number 46. You're joining myself, one of your hosts, joined by my lovely co-host, the techie teacher himself, Mr. Tom, back in his colourful cube once again. What's up, indeed? And below him, the man of many pixels with the guitars on the wall, Mr. Richie. Welcome back as well. Hello indeed. You are joining us for, as I mentioned, episode 46 of the podcast, where we bring you a Stadia weekly roundup with our opinions, some facts and news stories from the week in the world of gaming, basically condensed down into an hour or so of chit-chat. And we've had a fantastically busy week this week. To get things rolling, for one, Richie, you did your first live stream this week.
I did. Yes, I did.
How exciting was it?
It was good. I was quite nervous, I must admit, going in, because I have been on live streams with you two, of course, but this is the first time, like, on my own. Like, okay, I'm doing
a bit different in the driver's seat, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's not having one used to like bounce conversation off was a bit weird as well. It was like, I just need to talk about what's going on in the game. Nothing happened. Much is happening in the game.
So Corner's a slow-paced game, is it?
Yeah. I think I picked a bad game for a live stream, to be honest. It's a good game, but live stream.
Excellent. Well, you did yourself proud. I did watch along silently while I was at a barbecue secretly. Watch along. I had to have it on mute so no one was asking like, why you're on your phone all the time. But yeah, I did give you my visual support. I know, yeah, keep watching.
So rude.
I know. But yeah, so just as a point, we will get to doing a Strange Brigade live stream, probably this Thursday actually, but life gets in the way sometimes. So Richie, thank you very much for taking up the mantle and helping out run a stream as well. Which now, once we all get settled in our own places and lockdown's not as strict and serious and stuff, we do intend to bring you something every Thursday. So keep yourself subscribed and locked to the channel.
It's something I wanted to do anyway, because I bought my new PC partially so I could do it, where in the past I haven't been able to till like the last month or so.
Yeah. I mean, we are at episode 46, and I think it's crazy to think we began all this. I was just using a laptop and like some audio editing and thing, and then now we've gone video. We've all bought.
How far we've come.
I know, it's crazy.
Literally in our first episode, I was using a HyperX gaming headset, and I didn't even have a webcam.
Just like that. This is all for you, lovely viewers and audience listeners out there. Which we should say, massive thank you to everyone, by the way, who does tune every week. It does really, really mean a lot to us, a lot to the channel, a lot to the community as well. It's fantastic, and we've passed the 4,000 hours listened mark now, just on video alone. That doesn't include our audio podcast. That's probably well into the 5,000, 6,000 plus. But just want to say a massive thank you, because it is one of our biggest steps towards bringing you better content. And for YouTube specifically, they ask you to hit a certain mark threshold before you can have things like super chat and stuff, so you can really get involved and we can engage with our community better. So thank you very much for all your continued support, for everything that we do. So my playthroughs of Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, thanks to everyone who's checked that out so far as well. I went full Indiana Jones this week, chased by a boulder. It may have killed me several times. I wasn't quite Harrison Ford in the moment, but I got there in the end. Tom, you know what part I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because you completed Monster Boy, right? At 2 a.m. in the morning.
So following last week's podcast, Richie, you made a bizarre prediction of saying 2 o'clock in the morning. It was pretty much right around 2 o'clock. I think it was just over. But finally managed to 100% Monster Boy. Incredible game. Really, really enjoyed it. Loving watching Chris' series as well. That was my inspiration for playing the game too. If you haven't checked it out yet, then make sure you do, because it's actually a lot of fun. It's a real fun game.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm still surprised we managed to get a prediction right.
That is it. You don't get a point. You don't get a point.
It's not Peter Bet.
No points for that one. But yeah, and speaking of continued support as well, this show wouldn't really happen without our friends over at Stadia Source as well, and Duncan over at Cloudy with a Chance of Games as well. So go check those guys out if you do want all your Stadia news. Give them some love, show them support. And we did actually pop over, myself and Richie. We're on the Roundtable podcast, the Stadia Knights themselves, and pleasantly invited us along, and we joined one perfect legend, the pro gamer, winner of Evo competitions and crazy Mortal Kombat fighting games such. Never spoke to the bloke before. Absolute delight. His energy for Stadia and how just blown away he was by this technology and crowd play, crowd choice, the future of Stadia, the fact he could play with his friends with barely any latency ping in comparison to the consoles, which he's naturally used to. It was just great to hear an outside perspective on things with such energy and positivity. So yeah, massive shout out to Perfect Legend.
I found it quite fun, just sat on the call with him, hearing him gush about how great Stadia is for someone who isn't a Stadia content creator and someone who plays fighting games for a living. So this guy, latency is an absolute essential for him.
Yeah.
Having as low latency.
I think it's quite nice as well sometimes to get that sort of refreshing take from people who aren't part of the Stadia content creators community anyway, because we obviously hear a lot of voices within this community that are echoed and bounce between each other and between like the voices of the community itself. But to hear somebody who hasn't really been thoroughly involved in it so far is really nice, and it was great to listen along to that and hear you guys talking and get the whole gist of what a pro gamer would actually feel the service could bring to something like the fighting games.
You brought up a great point about like getting people together for event competitions, just the sheer cost involved for when you have to get 7, 20, 30, 40, however many Xboxes, PlayStations in the room just to make the competition actually work. And with Stadia, you would just need the Chromecasts or the recording equipment, I guess. So it's a lot cheaper off the get-go. And everyone's on the same internet connection, so it makes it even fairer in a way. But yeah, everyone...
talking a third or less cost, aren't you, really? Like a third or less.
I mean, they don't even need to... They could actually use their own controller. It depends how strict the competition is with like input and stuff like that, if you have to all use default controllers. But no, it was great to see. And like C-Truth, Lord Moore, Dan and Avery were like totally right in what they said. Just give it a try. If you are new to the podcast and you're thinking, I'm just checking the Stadia thing out, give it a try. It's like, it's entry level, it's so low. You don't have to fork out hundreds of pounds for a console. We've been saying it for months and months now. And it works for us, which is great. Amazing. But thank you for having us on the show, gentlemen. It was an absolute delight and a pleasure.
There's one he touched on. You can start trying for free with stuff you got anyway. And he actually uses the DualShock 4. He doesn't have the Premier Edition yet.
That's true. Which means he's just... To be fair, I've used the DualShock 4 a few times because it's my preferential controller. It's what I'm used to. And it always amazes me just like how seamless it switches between the logos. So like it goes to the sacred symbols, the X, triangle, square, circle, and then jumps to mouse and keyboard, and then with Stadia, where it's just so seamless. It's crazy how quick it is. And he actually, Perfect Legend did mention something about that as well, how he just jumps between keyboard and was amazed at how quick it is, and it is just seamless. And it's these little things that we just take for granted now. But loads of fun to be had. Thank you for that. Go check that out on Stadia Source's channel as well. Last week, gentlemen, we spoke about the funny differences between Americanisms and Britishisms, because our audience is very much both UK and US at the moment. We had a delightful chat post-show last week about all the many, many differences. Aluminium, aluminum, oregano. So if you are
quite nice to get some nice community feedback in the comments section as well. That was quite fun too.
Yeah, it was definitely. So
bringing in words from other languages, I believe in the European languages. We were talking about ambulance as well, which was quite funny.
It was, I saw that. Yeah. German language is a beautiful.
So thanks for that.
Well.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so check that out. We've also got
it's a brilliant name.
A great post show for you this week as well. We're doing more game centric this week. We're going to be talking out our favourite Stadia games to date. So the summer of 2020, what our favourite Stadia games are specifically, because we're on the cusp of a massive dam breaking of AAA third party games incoming for Stadia. But let's talk about what we've enjoyed playing on Stadia so far as we come up on that year anniversary stage. So stay tuned for the podcast, for the post-show podcast. Remember, our Patreons do get that exclusively as well. And thank you to you for supporting the channel for as little as $1 over on patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia. But gentlemen, before we get into the thicket of the show, I'd like to know what you've been playing. Tom, you said you finished Monster Boy. Have you moved on from the cartoon world of Monster Boy?
I have. Actually, yeah. So I've been talking about it for quite a while, but now that we've also had Just Shapes and Beats as well, I had the opportunity to play through the story mode of that, and I've completed the story mode as well. As a lover of chiptune, and I do quite enjoy a little bit of EDM on the side of my very like rock side of me. I don't know why. I just enjoy it, like the electronic style music. That game is a blast. It's a real challenge, but it's so much fun for something so simple as just a concept game of having shapes moving around a screen and having to dodge things based on beats of music. Yeah, it's a ton of fun, and I'd really suggest that people just give it a shot for 5 minutes, play through the tutorial at least, and you get the gist of it very, very quickly. I know rhythm games aren't for everyone, but ever since I played, I think Elite Beat Agents on the Nintendo DS.
Wow.
It's just going on from that. Just I love rhythm games. They're brilliant.
I thought you were going to say
How's the
dance,
plot?
Matt.
I mean, you could go as far back as I mean, for us, not even DDR. We had Dancing Stage Euromix in the UK, was it?
Yeah.
That cheap knockoff of DDR.
I will
Yeah.
forever have songs from the Bugles in my head from that particular game.
Yeah.
Video
yeah.
killed the radio star, man. What a classic. What a classic to dance to. Richie, how about you? What have you been playing?
It's mainly been Ghost of Tsushima. I'm getting quite
Now
close to
who's the
end
trader?
now, so...
Now who's the trader?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, I can't comment really.
You can't deny it.
But I'm loving that game. I'm getting quite close to the end. So hopefully by the time we sit down next week, I'll be moved on to something else. I basically had a week, not this week, the one before, where I just didn't have much time to game at all. So I just didn't basically play anything. Apart from that we played on as live streams. So
No one told you life was going to be that way. I don't know why that came to my brain. That's the way he was talking. I can see in the docket straight away, Richie, friends.
Thank you, Chris. What have you been playing?
I've had a very busy week of gaming. So not only have I played some Monster Boy, I've also been playing some Ghosts of Traitor. And I've actually branched out a little bit this week. So I invested as a cloud enthusiast and a tech enthusiast. All the weeks we've been talking about Stadia for almost a year now. I actually went on Xbox Design Labs and got myself a lovely custom-made Xbox controller with some inscriptions in, purely to test
Double
out
traitor.
XCloud double traitor.
I was admiring the beauty of it, but yeah.
It is very, very, very nice. I've gone for some of my favourite colours, nice bit of teal and orange in there. Not only did it make me think I would love this to come to Stadia, custom controllers, that'd be absolutely amazing.
I've been talking about it for ages.
Without a doubt.
I mean, everyone
Make
should
it happen,
do it.
Google. Make it happen.
Yeah, gaming's such like a personal thing. A lot, especially if you're in single-player games. I have a bunch of controls which I absolutely love, and there's something about the crisp whiteness against like a colour clash which just sells it for me. Mwah. But in terms of games, I thought I'd get it in XCloud, so I'm in the XCloud beta, everybody. I'm going to try it out because we've had comments over the last couple of weeks across social media saying, they just talk about Stadia without actually testing the competition. So, Richie, you did a GeForce Now one way back when, so I thought I'd do some XCloud. So actually, I tried to play some games that may be coming to Stadia. So I played Hello Neighbor.
Okay.
Very rough entry to a game. Doesn't tell you really what the fuck you're supposed to do. Didn't really enjoy that as much. I did check out Ori and the Blind Forest, finally complete collection edition. Stunning game, beautiful gorgeous.
Game.
The orchestral music at the opening to that, and the way it makes you feel emotion towards the character, just in like the opening, and the way it tells the story is absolutely beautiful. Nice little side scroller as well if you've not seen it before. It worked on my Samsung Galaxy S Plus. I tried it on both 4G and Wi-Fi. It worked. The only thing, I did have some frame rate drops, and what I'd done, you neither of you two have checked it out before, right?
Not excellent, no.
The only thing what I did find is there was almost like a refresh rate on the game. So every 20 seconds or so, you would actually see, like the refresh rate screen come across.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. That's weird.
So basically, like playing Ori and stuff, again, looked beautiful on the phone. Audio sounded fine. But yeah, every couple of minutes or so, I would just get this refresh rate, kind of go, and it's very, very visible when you distinctly see a pixelated line come down the screen at probably about this pace, slow pace,
almost like the old playing an old console, like the Genesis or
you got your CRT
or the SNES, and you see the line of it actually loading.
That's something that happened because of the technology of CRTs. It's literally a moving thing. It shouldn't happen on a modern display unless it's some
strange.
Well, that was the only thing for me playing it as well. Sometimes backing out to the menu was different. Unlike Stadia, the XCloud didn't really have a menu. So once I was playing the game, there was no buttons that I found anyway that I had on the controller to get back to the main menu. I had to use the touchscreens on the phone panel to get back out to the XCloud menu. I do like the little load up screen though. Every time you play it on a game, it gives you a little green rocket flying through space and says fetching your game or loading your game. Wasn't as quick as Stadia because obviously we know Xbox, they have essentially Series X is plugged into a server somewhere, whereas Stadia is purely through the servers, if I'm right in thinking. And that's the distinguishing difference. But enjoyed my time with it. Again, I've got Game Pass Ultimate. I'm going to try some stuff out on my PC as well. But yeah, I thought I'd just give you all a little taste, a little take to say we are doing our trusty research over at Sounds of Stadia. But now I've been playing a big variety of games, and there's definitely some on that list that I want to check out. But this is the great thing we always talk about. You can play anywhere. Play where it makes
I need to go back and actually test PS Now, because at the time I could play. My internet was terrible. I could play Stadia fine, and PS Now was an absolute shit show.
On that note,
and that was kind of where I left it. But now I've got decent internet. It's probably worth me checking it out again.
On that note, in the rumor mill, there are whisperings that Sony are actually very secretly behind the scenes working on something without telling people, whereas obviously Stadia and XCloud are very much at the forefront of talking about cloud gaming. There's a lot of rumors behind the scenes that with the PS5 that Sony may, and it is purely rumors at this point, may be dropping the price of PS Plus altogether, like the actual cost of it, and only charging for something like PS Now while they're also working on server infrastructure. So it could be interesting to see what they actually do with the service long term.
I'm not surprised. I think we've talked before about Sony. At one point, it seemed like PS Now was just dead in a ditch, and then suddenly Stadia comes out, and then Microsoft announces XCloud, and suddenly they're throwing money back into it.
Yeah.
So they probably are working on moving that way, but just behind.
Yeah, they need to compete in the future. Every day, every week seems to be more in the cloud, and now Microsoft are kind of like ready to go live almost within the coming weeks. It's becoming a reality, and Sony so far haven't really showcased their hand essentially of cards. They've definitely get them close to their chest, because we know they own Gaikai. They've got PS Now, but it very much is emulating PS3 and PS4 and some weird. You can download some games but not others, and yeah, I think they just need to focus and commit. But again, and then Nintendo are many, many miles behind off in the distance.
They need to sync your saves as well for PS Now. I like the idea that you could download the games locally. So if you're moving somewhere and you're going to have terrible internet connection, you could download your game. I actually did that with Persona 5. The problem I had was it doesn't sync up to the streaming version. So two distinct versions of the game, which is terrible. It's just crap.
Yeah, when I played PS Now, I went in and played Star Wars Force Unleashed, and going back into that, I was shocked that it basically puts you into a PlayStation 3 home screen again, essentially, to find the game, and I was just like, wow, I've not seen this in many, many years, and I forgot how clunky and oddly laid out it was. But the fact I'm having to do that through my PlayStation is a bit weird. Whereas again, the joys of Stadia and like XCloud, it was all just there in a library, accessible, no downloads, no updates, just click to play, and within a few seconds you're into the game on any device you want to play.
It's going to be interesting how these free services develop over the next few years.
It certainly is. And our first news story of the week actually pertains to this. So speaking of XCloud and cloud gaming and stuff, Tom, would you like to give us the
super sexy special Stadia story segment, aka the news?
So as we mentioned, Microsoft XCloud going live imminently. Stadia is already a thing, but not everywhere. Not everywhere people would like to play. First news story of the week: Apple being a straight up dick when it comes to cloud gaming services. Right? We just need to hit this nail on the head. They're just being absolute dicks when it comes to this, because this week it's in the news more because XCloud I think it's 15th of September it's supposed to like fully come out. Not on iOS, just like Stadia, not on iOS. And Apple actually addressed this weekend. I think it was to Business Insider or something. They came out with an article that basically addressed it, because Microsoft XCloud and Stadia and other cloud gaming platforms are in breach of iOS app rules, apparently. Do you want the official statement? I'll read it out so you've all got context for it. The App Store was created to be a safe and trusted place for customers to discover and download apps, and a great business opportunity for all developers. Before they go on our store, all apps are reviewed against the same set of guidelines that are intended to protect our customers and provide a fair and level playing field to developers. Our customers enjoy great apps and games from millions of developers, and gaming services can absolutely launch on the Stadia App Store as long as they follow the same set of guidelines applicable to all developers, including submitting games individually for review and appearing in charts and searches. In addition to the App Store, developers can choose to reach all iPhone and iPad users over the web through Safari, which is shit, and other browsers on the App Store. End quote. Tom, you're our techie guy. What do you make of this statement? Is it technical limitations or just pure bastardry.
This is nothing to do with technical limitations whatsoever. This is purely just internal guidelines, the way that Apple want to essentially control everything that comes through their system. What they don't want really is they want to obviously take a cut of everything that comes through their store, so everything that goes through their process. If you have an app on there that you have to pay something for, the money has to go via Apple. So essentially, they take
right. They take as well, isn't it? It's
I think it is quite high. But obviously, if you put something on there like XCloud, like Stadia, then they're going to be purchasing things directly through those apps' own infrastructure. Therefore, it bypasses Apple altogether. So Apple are not happy with that, and because of that, they've just basically said, you know what, screw you guys, no, we're not dealing with this. And that sort of like raises a lot of questions then about the validity of other apps on the store, things like other streaming services like Netflix.
I was thinking just that. I think it's quite. I think they seem to be defining games separate to other mediums of entertainment, and that seems to be the way they're getting around it. But I think it's quite hypocritical to do so.
Absolutely. Now,
games have a rating system, same as like movies and TV shows. So that argument is completely bogus.
Yeah, I posted out a tweet about this saying if only we had some kind of ESRB ratings board or PEGI board that actually review. I know they don't review them, but they hold them to a certain standard. And the downside of that is if you don't meet those standards, you get fined. There's consequences to it. So surely the consumer-friendly, the business industry-friendly way of approaching this would be allow Stadia and Microsoft to be on their App Store. And if they breach any of the guidelines, fine them. Take them off the App Store. But to proactively say you can't have it on App Store because of these specific guidelines, it's surely just a big finger to the competition, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's quite old-fashioned thinking from Apple and going, here's our guidelines, we're not going to change them for anyone. Where like Microsoft and Google and probably even Sony in the next few years are probably looking going, well, actually, this industry's going in this way and your terms and conditions are kind of behind the times. But ultimately, I think this comes down to money. I'd imagine something like Netflix is probably had to pay Apple a lot of money to be able to get on the platform, to be able to influence the guidelines and stuff.
But likewise, then, if you suggest something like that, then we also see other apps on the App Store, like BBC iPlayer. Now, I can't see the government forking out money to have BBC iPlayer available on the App Store.
No.
Now, the whole thing, really, like this whole stance that Apple is taking is very like anti-consumer, in my opinion. To the point that a lot of people who are invested in cloud gaming and cloud gaming technology and the future of gaming are very much going to look at their like next phone upgrades and possibly even move away. So much so that actually I have done just that. So I'm really sorry to say, Apple, but I was on the fence before. In fact, no, I'm not sorry to say that whatsoever. I was on the fence about moving away based on the future of what was happening with Stadia. And this has caused me to jump ship very, very quickly. I mean, I've been speaking to Chris earlier in the week about this. And literally, as soon as the news article came out, I went, you know what? I'm upgrading. I'm changing phone. That's it. So I've jumped ship. I'm no longer with Apple anymore. I have moved over to Samsung for the time being. Yes, arguably I could have gone with Google. However, I'm giving it a try. Let's see how it goes. And as you can see, Stadia is currently up and running on my phone.
The thing is, Tom, me and you both got new phones this year.
Yes.
Both running Android, both can play Stadia. Different manufacturers. We have choices.
We have choices.
I think Apple's actually always been anti-consumer. I've never had an Apple product that's been kind of looking from the outside. They've always seemed very anti-consumer to me, very controlling. And they got away with it for a long time when they were at the cutting edge of technology. In gaming now, they're well behind.
Absolutely.
They're basically not in gaming. And now gaming's going this one way and they're kind of just like stood to like traditional roots. And it's like, rather than reviewing their terms of service, I'm sure they have reviewed the terms of service, but probably went, well, there's not enough money to make there. And now people like you, Tom, are jumping ship.
I mean,
I've seen other people contemplating it in like on Twitter and on Facebook and stuff. So
let's be real about it, though. Apple don't care so much. They're probably looking at the number base and they're going, "Oh, there's not enough numbers that we really care about this." And arguably, there might be something for that. But because when it first came out that Stadia wasn't going to be able to work on iOS, it's sort of like everyone sort of pointed fingers at Google again and said, "Why isn't it like? Oh, it's not."
On Twitter, every single post. When's it on iOS? When can I play it on my iPad?
I kind of at that point put it down to Stadia just not having the numbers to budge the needle for Apple. But now when Microsoft are in the same boat, that changes my perspective a bit. This is now Apple just digging in.
That
was the argument I was going to make.
Yeah.
That's why it's got
it's now become news because all of a sudden Microsoft and Xbox and the Xbox community, you're suddenly taking an entire like marketplace away from them. And you know what is it? It accounts for, is it about 45% Apple?
It's about that, yeah. Varies.
I might be wrong. It might be around about something like 30-something%. I think Samsung.
Which is really impressive, to be honest.
But...
if you consider them as a phone manufacturer rather than a platform holder.
Yeah, definitely.
That's incredibly impressive.
Yeah. The Venn diagram of crossover though, and the people this impacts is going to get bigger as time goes on. So you've got your crossover of Xbox community now. You've got our little Stadia community sat there playing games. What happens when PlayStation comes out with an app as well, and then Nintendo do it? And are they not allowed?
PlayStation now? Can you get PlayStation now on iPhone?
I couldn't tell you, Richie.
Let me check because I do still have my iPhone.
Yeah.
You mean you didn't just throw it straight out the window?
Oh no, it still makes a decent camera, Chris.
Makes an even better frisbee, I've heard. But while you check that, Tom, the Venn diagram of the way these things work is, in my opinion, gamers are some of the biggest tech enthusiasts out there. They're probably the ones who always want the latest bit of kit. So in terms of like their actual mobile device choice, every 2 years or however like your local respective one is, when your upgrade is due, you generally are probably looking for like whatever the cutting edge technology is in mobile phones. And like I said, the way these Venn diagrams all cross over each other, eventually you're going to hit a point where if PlayStation come out with one, an Xbox thingy, and your gamer mind cannot play your favourite games on those devices, where you can see your friends who have Android phones laughing away playing all these different AAA games on the move now. And as that becomes the norm, as cloud gaming takes off more and more, at what point does that really make you have to sit back and question your next phone purchasing decision? And from Apple's point of view, they don't want you to make that decision. They want you every 2 years to keep in their ecosystem. But this, I think, could be a big risk. And I think this is why I don't think it will last forever. I think it'll probably be... I wouldn't be surprised if early next year, or even sooner than that, to be fair.
Well, PlayStation, it's not PlayStation Now. I was thinking of it was actually it was Remote Play, which I can actually see get merged into PlayStation Now eventually. In the next iteration. But I can get Remote Play on my phone now. Would that be in breach of Apple's terms of service?
I don't know, because it works the same way that a lot of like desktop remote connection apps work as well. So to allow people to remote into a computer to actually support, for example.
It's like
it still allow me to play games on my device.
It does. It's a bit of a workaround.
I suppose in with the Apple guidelines, it's because you're not purchasing them through. Like, I don't recall you can buy. You're not buying stuff directly through Remote Play. It's just a screen mirrored.
There is an argument there then that service like Shadow could be accessible through iOS, because Shadow just allows you to essentially rent and access a high-end gaming PC rather than actually purchase games through a service.
Steam is on it as well, I believe. I did read some articles that said Steam is on iOS, so that gets surrounded by the caveat you've already bought the games there separately.
Yeah, there is. You can access the store on the Steam app.
It's more of a utility than the actual platform.
You can't actually play them.
But you can use it as a shop front. This is where the rules just become obscure and weird, because like you alluded to, Tom, Netflix and stuff, any like, is Amazon, you use the Amazon app to buy a product, that money goes direct to Amazon, and the Amazon app's free. So like, even boiled down to its most simplistic purchasing power, like, did Apple take a cut from everything Amazon buy through the Amazon app on iOS? Like, surely not. So it's just bullshit, right? It's, again, there's a ratings board there to review these games. Hold them account if they put a game out there that's, I don't know, violent, crazy, and shouldn't be out there. But to deny it for the sake of it is...
I'd be surprised if Microsoft and Google haven't had some sort of conversation together about this. Because although we like in the game, as gaming commentators and stuff, to put them together, all these console wars, we've seen them work together loads of times. Like Microsoft and Sony work together on game streaming and stuff, on all sorts of stuff. I'd be surprised if Microsoft and Google aren't having some sort of conversation about
this
legal implications. Do we try and force their hand? Because I mean, if Microsoft and that'd be something to see actually. Microsoft and Google, two of the biggest tech companies in the world, go up against the other big tech company in Apple.
It's all just politics, and we all know as businesses behind the scenes, like you said, they share patents. They I think we've joked in the past about Samsung and Google and Apple. They're all at each other's necks, lawsuits back and forth all the time. They're always fined millions back and forth between themselves. But they all benefit from the world's technology, and they all make millions upon millions from it. So, yeah, massive companies like Microsoft and Google, they've got to be flexing behind the scenes and saying, well, Apple, if you want to work in tandem with our Microsoft Service Suite, our Google algorithms and search engine stuff, and YouTube, like, it won't happen. But imagine if Google just turned around and went, right, we'll pull YouTube from iOS then, if you're going to be a dick. Like, they could do that. They won't. But there's got to be.
It costs them so much money.
Like, who would buy an iPhone?
45% the end.
Yeah, who would buy an iPhone if you could not get YouTube on it? Like, that's people's main form of entertainment. It's kind of, where do you flex and say,
or you just slap in 99 pence. Like, think if you buy through the App Store, this is how much it costs. It's free on an Android.
Yeah, it's just
it's do something like that.
It's when they break it down to just their official statement, it's laughable at how simplistic the statement is, but how it doesn't hold up to half the stuff on the App Store to begin with. So
the problem is, I think the terms of service are kind of outdated, and the gaming industry is moving a certain way. Cloud gaming seems to be where things are going. We've already mentioned like Shadow, GeForce Now, PlayStation Now. Stadia. I'm forgetting. Stadia. XCloud. Like, there's so many companies moving it in this direction, and Apple just seem to be going, no, we're going to stick to the traditional a bit.
I mean,
I think this will change.
Oh yeah, and I understand the guidelines; they make sense for developers and apps. But it's not like Microsoft and Google are not reputable companies. It's not like nobody in the entire world has never heard of them before, and they're trying to do some dodgy money laundering thing on the low to try and get this app Trojan horsed onto iPhones just to screw them over with patches. Like, come on, they're all regulated and so. Like, if they want to do money laundering, they'll just evade tax like most of them do.
I actually think as well at the moment the hit they're going to take is probably negligible, because I don't think cloud gaming is that big yet. But as I've said a couple of times already, my anticipation for Microsoft over the next console generation is to transition people away from having a physical box in the living room into just a cloud gaming service. I think that's what their plans seem to be. So that then means over the next probably 3, 4, 5 years, Apple might start to see progressive year-on-year drops in sales.
Agreed. Very anti-consumer though.
Yeah,
absolutely. And speaking of anti-consumer, we segue into our second story of the week, which is the upcoming game to Google Stadia on September 4th, Marvel's Avengers. It's got an exclusive character, gentlemen. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he ain't coming to Stadia. He's exclusive to PlayStation. Lo and behold. Obviously, this news broke earlier in the week. We saw loads of fervour up on Twitter about people are not happy. People who have PlayStations are happy. It's created a dilemma for myself. Ooh, indeed. Yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there. Spider-Man exclusive on PlayStation 4. What do you think of this? Off the back of our Apple anti-consumer.
I'm not surprised. It seems like a bit of an old-fashioned move again by Sony. Like, they seem to be starting to play well with others a bit over the last few years, and now this.
I mean, they've already got the exclusive deal for the Spider-Man games anyway, so it was sort of like, it was inevitable, I would say. I mean, it's still not nice to hear because everybody does love Spider-Man. We all grew up watching the Spider-Man cartoons and so on, so obviously it's very much quite near and dear to our hearts. But it's a great move by Sony to be able to secure that with Square Enix and to be able to say, like, right, we're going to get this and it's going to be just ours right here. But if you look back, granted there are other games that have done very similar things before, but for some reason, I suppose it's on the back of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe hype.
It's the prominence of Spider-Man that
game hype.
All the discussion.
Yes,
I mean he's voted number one superhero in America for the last several years, I think, as well. So he's definitely up there.
Over Captain America.
Yeah, which it's in the name, right? So it's definitely popularity. The big thing for me with this is, interesting enough, I just defaulted to, oh, well, of course, Sony owns Spider-Man. Yet I've read many articles saying, no, they own the movie rights. The gaming rights are totally up for business deals. So obviously they have the gaming Marvel Spider-Man on PS4, but then also Spider-Man does show up in Nintendo's exclusive Ultimate Alliance 3. Great game, super fun. But he's in that as well. So actually, this is probably Sony have gone to Square Enix and Marvel Entertainment and said, actually, he's so synonymous with PlayStation. Can we have him with this game? Like, I'd love to know the timeline for if he was ever going to be in this game and how that came about.
It might be part of the deal that to bring Spider-Man to the PS4 in its own game, that they got so many game exclusive run or time window exclusive.
It's like Civil War all over again.
It might have been Square's had to go to Sony to get, we want Spider-Man in the game, and Sony turn around and go, you can, but only on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Or something. There's loads of ways this could have happened.
I mean, yeah.
We'll never know.
They're doing everything in their power to make Spider-Man synonymous with PlayStation. Like they've got Miles Morales as their launch game. Well, we think it's the launch game for PS5, which is going to be a massive unit seller off the success of the original Spider-Man game on PS4. Now it's with the Avengers as well. It's just tying that public perception that actually, if you want to play Spider, if you want to play with America's #1 voted superhero, you need PlayStation. Now, my follow-up question is, what Avenger do you think Stadia are going to get exclusive? So this is it now. Xbox are going to get one. PC may get one. Switch, if it ever comes out on Switch, will get one. Stadia. Let's hear them, gentlemen. What do you think? Is there any that come off the top of your head immediately? Like, oh yeah, Stadia. I can see Stadia and this particular hero pairing together like peanut butter and jelly. Tell me.
I feel like I'm going to go with one serious one and one joke one.
Okay.
Because I feel like, add a little bit of humor to it. Synonymous with Stadia is very difficult because it's hard to actually put a finger on what is synonymous with Stadia. For me, I'd love to see something clean and fresh, something that's got that almost like Google simplistic branding about it, and go with something like getting the Fantastic Four on there. Just alongside. I know they're not like traditionally the Avengers, but there have been times within like comic book history where the Fantastic Four have been part of the Avengers as well. Not that mainstream, I know, but I sort of feel like if we were going to go down the route of picking like, a character, I don't know, it's difficult to do that. As a joke one, I kind of thought, well, with all of everyone on the internet sort of jumping at the fact that like, what's Stadia, like what is Stadia, like Stadia's tanking, Stadia was dead from the get-go and so on, go with someone really shit in the cinema, like in the whole Marvel event, Marvel comics in general.
Everyone.
I was gonna go even.
Like Hawkeye, that was just too easy though.
Wow. I was going to go even deeper than that. I was going to go with someone like Namor the Submariner. Wow. Half man, half merman. He's the Aquaman of Marvel. Go with Namor the Submariner.
Tom, now when I edit this video, I need to go find a picture of Namor just to put in down here.
Namor.
I have no clue who that is. No clue who that is.
Wow, okay.
Richie, how about you?
I don't know. It's hard for me to think. Cause the problem is this game's coming at the point where I'm the least interested in Marvel I have been in the last like decade. I'm gonna go with, is Falcon in?
Falcon's not.
I feel like Falcon's suitably like second tier enough that Google might have a chance of getting.
Michael, that's your selling pitch. He's suitably second tier enough.
Well, he's not like a Spider-Man or an Iron Man or Hulk, is he?
We've got Iron Man, we might as well have War Machine as well, right?
People know who he is,
It's basically the same thing.
I suppose from a developer's standpoint, it's very easy with these type of games to copy and paste their move sets over. So if you were to have like, we know Spider-Man's exclusive, but if everyone else was to get Spider-Woman, or what's the Gwen?
Spider-Gwen.
Spider-Gwen. It's just simply like a skin change, but then it kind of doesn't damage the exclusivity as much. Or Venom. I'm sure actually he's probably not been in the Avengers.
Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah, I mean just changing that.
That'd be brilliant.
Oh, you've got me thinking now. Actually, I'd love to see. I know I've already said my bit there, but wouldn't you love to see someone like Daredevil, actually? Someone just like a little bit more mainstream.
Well, Daredevil's my... now, actually, we know Rocksteady are finally doing a Suicide Squad game, and we know WB Montreal are working on a Batman, supposedly Court of Owls game. Daredevil was my kind of go-to hero where I would love to see an Arkham Asylum style game, because he kind of fits Batman's skill set essentially almost the same, except for he can't see, so there's more like echolocation stuff you could possibly do in his fight style. But in terms of like the grounded reality, can't really fly, can't shoot laser beams, all that kind of stuff. But that, like, the fighting mechanics of Arkham, I think would lend in with Daredevil in New York really, really well. But yeah, great character to have in, and he definitely was an Avenger at some point. My pick, thinking of like if we were going to go for a Stadia exclusive one, it has to be something to do with the cloud. So I'm going to go with Storm from X-Men.
I was thinking Storm, but I thought she's too. She's like top tier.
Top tier.
Yeah. And I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's would
well,
happen.
Yeah, this is the kind of interesting thing about this game. Like, how long are the legs going to be on it? Because they've said there's 4 characters that are going to come out afterwards. We know one of them was Hawkeye. We don't know if Spider-Man is one of those 4 or he's additional to that.
I assume he's additional.
So everyone gets an additional 4. So we've got 3 more in wait. Do they just keep adding more on us? They've came out already and said there's no microtransactions. Yay. So actually, that shouldn't be a sarcastic gay. It should be a fuck yes, like no microtransactions.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not against it for something like this for cosmetic reasons.
Yeah, you could just imagine them going down the road of like, oh, if you want to play as Hawkeye, it's a $5.99 fee.
You look at like Spider-Man, you could get a Spider-Gwen skin or something, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Jack of Hearts is an Avengers.
If we're talking straight up DLC, though, I can see characters like DLC episodes of almost adding them in story-wise right there.
Yeah. It's not a bad way to go. Like he's a new mini story arc for this to introduce this character, and you get the character as well.
Yeah. Well, this is the interesting thing. So I have played Avengers as well. I played the beta last night, in fact. I mentioned it pre-show with you two. Played a little bit of Avengers, not on Stadia, I'll point out. Played it on PlayStation, because we don't get betas, apparently. Or pre-orders, for that matter, for most things. But yeah, jumped in, checked it out with one of my friends, and what has me intrigued by this game is, like you mentioned there, Richie, the little story arc bit. So it starts off with a very much a story-focused mission. It gives you a taster of all the characters within the opening scene. Something happens, you've probably seen it in the trailers and such. And then you basically go into a solo mission with 2 characters. And then after you've completed that, it opens it up into what is known as the War Table, which is basically you pick and choose what levels you go off to. And they're kind of similar to, I don't want to say raids in Destiny, but you pick and choose these shorter missions. Some will be longer than others, and you've got to do basically objectives within them as a team. Multiple characters, multiple accessory improvements, visuals. The beta actually gives you quite a lot of coins to spend on like in-game currency, on custom skins and outfits, and already the pantheon of stuff they could add just from a comic book perspective is phenomenal. All your characters have like their own little gamer tag, which is comic book covers, which is a nice little touch I really appreciated. The fight moves, the move sets, the variation between like Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, quite fun. Still a bit rough around the edges. Again, it's a beta or a beta, however you say it. But I had a lot of fun, and honestly, it's started to build my hype for the game a little bit. It was just nonsensical, smash stuff up with friends, chatting away while you're doing these objectives, and just in a universe that I've come to love over the last like decade or so. Obviously, not quite MCU skins, which was a lot of people's bugbear, but I really think if you overlook that and once you get into the game, you kind of forget about it. Doesn't look like Robert Downey Jr., it doesn't look like Chris Evans. They get quite close with some of them. Don't think the Thor's that different, but then again, he is wearing a robe and armor and has a hammer, so it's a bit easy to forgive that as just a normal human being. But that now gives me the dilemma, which I think a lot of our Stadia players are going to do because of the Spider-Man story. Where do we play this? Because I've got friends on PlayStation who are going to play it definitively. I know that. I've got you guys here. I've got the Stadia community, but I don't have Spider-Man, so it's like I can now have to have that internal monologue of how important to me is America's #1 voted hero, Spidey himself. And now I want to pose the question to you guys, obviously where you sit with the game, but then does this differ your purchasing decision?
Well, for me, I'm intrigued by the game, but I'm not excited. As I mentioned, since Endgame, my interest in Marvel has been slowly waning in the absence of any content. I'm not that interested in the Disney Plus series because I just don't really watch that much serialized content. So my plan is actually when the open beta comes, is that next month or later this month?
Next week.
Next week.
Yes.
I'm planning jumping into that on PlayStation to give it a go because ultimately this game I think will live and die based on how fun it is to play. The MCU stuff around it is brilliant. I'm all for that. But if the game is kind of meh to play, then I'm not in.
Yeah.
But I'm actually leaning probably towards PlayStation at the moment because of Spider-Man. It feels like it's a better deal.
Well, you're getting more for the same money, right?
Yeah, that's it.
It does make me think then, like, whether there's anything else working behind the scenes. I mean, one of the gripes that we have at the moment within the Stadia community is because of the player base that it sort of struggles online in a little bit. And I feel like a game like Avengers is very much looking to sort of lend itself to that online element of playing with other people and playing with friends or matchmaking and so on. So I don't think the Spider-Man content for me is so much of a do or die. It's more about like the cross-play element of it that I'm really hoping they do look at long term. Well, and possibly bring that to the table.
As a add on to that, then Tom, playing the beta, there is when you don't matchmake with other players, you can actually fill the additional slots within your roster with your own characters. So essentially, that's
the way I'm more likely to play it.
Yeah. So essentially, last night it was myself and my friend. I think I was Kamala Khan. He was Hulk or Iron Man, interchangeable in them out, and the third and fourth slots just got filled with like Black Widow. And Hulk or vice versa, I think. And when you play through the mission, the AI is quite smart. They know what to do. They just go beat up the enemies for you. But so you wouldn't necessarily need online play, but the option is there. So again, if that was a worry in the Stadia community, don't worry. You can play with AI characters too to fill out your roster. You don't have to go it alone, solo.
I'm probably still going to stick with Stadia for the time being because it's the platform I'm most invested in at the moment. I don't really use my PlayStation as much anymore. Unlike you, gents, I didn't pick up Ghost of Tsushima, even though it's very much the kind of game that I would actually play.
You should. Awesome.
Yeah, again, it's whether I have the time and whether I want to invest in doing it. But at the moment, I'm very heavily invested in Stadia, so it's still going to be on my list of things to get on Stadia at present.
A lot of it actually comes down to pricing as well. If assuming that they're all the same price, then. Actually, now thinking about it, I'm probably leaning back towards Stadia because
you got a £10 discount.
And also I'm less likely to play this game excessively, which means missing out on some characters isn't probably going to be that big of a deal for me because I'm probably not going to roll. I'd be surprised if I roll credits on it.
Right.
I'm not really into like online persistent world stuff. I don't particularly play a lot of online stuff with other people outside of live streams.
Yeah, my thought process was more lean towards Stadia as well, just because of the community aspect. If it's an online, all live game that's going to get added to iterations month on month, year on year, I don't mind not having a physical version of that. I like physical versions for games I'd like to go back to in 10 years, and I don't have to worry about any servers disappearing. As long as I've got the console and the disc, I can play it, no problem. This being like similar to FIFA, like I don't necessarily care about having a physical copy, so this game that's going to be iterated on, the fact that with updates not being a thing on Stadia is going to be great. I can imagine everyone on console wanting to go and play Avengers, and they've brought out 3-4 patches within the week to keep it ticking over because it's an ever-present live world. Stadia alleviates all that, and just for pure convenience, I think I'm leaning towards that. And like you said, Richie, Spider-Man's like one of a roster of what's probably going to end up being 10, 15, 20 characters, hopefully. How often would I want to swing around? Whereas actually, from what I played in the beta, a lot of them have a swinging mechanic already. Like Kamala Khan has a stretchy arms. She has the same thing. Black Widow has like a grapple hook. They have the same mechanics. So how much Spidey's going to bring to a fighting game that essentially all happens on the ground, give or take a flying drone or two. I actually don't think I'm that bothered, but I need to have that internal.
I don't think Spider-Man's going to be anywhere near as satisfying as Spider-Man PS4.
No,
either.
not at all.
It's not even the same ballpark, I'd imagine.
It was interesting. Square Enix came out and actually said, like, we've done loads of research on the fluidity and the physics and stuff. And I was like, did you not just check out the PS4 game that did it phenomenally well? Because that would be a great place to start. But they've gone down their own route naturally as a different developer.
I mean,
But-
I'd be surprised if that most of the development team haven't played through that game to get a feel for it. It's such a good touchstone, but obviously it's a very different game, so you can't match it one to one.
So this game's going to get loads of DLC, loads of content. Speaking of DLC and content, we'll move over to our next story of the week, Doom Eternal, which is out on Stadia. Was that our second day and date launch? We got Borderlands 3 wasn't. I always think it was.
Nope.
Doom Eternal was our first big AAA day and date launch.
I believe it was. Yeah.
Excellent. So now we're getting some DLC. So Doom Eternal, The Ancient Gods Part 1 was announced this week with a little teaser drop from Jeff Keighley doing his summer Game Fest thing is still going. He's just relentless, Jeff. He's just the summer of games indeed.
I miss E3. Everything was like kind of condensed into 1 week. It was awesome. Then you moved on.
Yeah, it does seem to just be like news after news sprinkled across the gaming industry. But yeah, did you have a chance to check out the trailer, either of you two? And what are your thoughts on it?
Must admit I haven't. The reason for it is I've sort of lost interest in Doom a little bit. I did get the game, I got it on release day, and I did play it quite extensively. But after that, I found myself putting the controller down and not picking it back up again after. I haven't found that sort of love for Doom Eternal as I have with previous Doom titles. So to get DLC is always great, obviously, because it means that there's still some love shown to the game, and there's obviously some interest in the game there still. But for me personally, no, I'm just I must admit I haven't checked it out yet, so I'll have to give it a shot and see what it looks like.
For me, I picked up Doom Eternal on launch because it's one of the games in Stadia I was actually quite excited for, because I really enjoyed Doom 2016. But for whatever reason, the day I sat down and played for about just under 2 hours, which is key here, and it just, at the time, it just didn't sink its teeth into me at all. It's like, I was playing, like, I don't really want to be playing this right now. So I decided, I actually refunded the game while I still could, because I figured, well, if I refund it now, if I'm ever in the mood later, it's probably going to be on sale at some point in the future anyway. Or there's no reason not to, because I was like, I'm not going to keep playing this at the moment.
Yeah.
Which means at the moment I'm not really that interested in the DLC.
But for anyone doubting your Doom fandom, Richie, you did get the platinum in Doom 2016, correct? So you've
No,
I thought you did. Oh, well.
No, I was working on it, but
take it back.
But it's one of them. Like it kind of fizzled out as other things.
What fandom?
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, we should address. Speaking of fandom as well, it's DC. Is it DC fandom where they're doing all these drops for the Arkham games?
DC still have fans?
Yes.
After all the movies?
Richie. There's more to DC than just their movies.
Yeah, I know.
Shots fired.
I know, indeed.
I'm playing.
Andy hates Doom, Tom. Can you believe that?
Andy's a traitor.
Yeah,
and I hate Apple as well.
Oh, sorry, no, I'm talking to a double traitor. So we'll.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
I hate Stadia. I hate Apple. I hate Doom, and I hate DC.
Well, you heard it here first. How do we get you heard it here first in sync, Tom? But we can't get the news in sync every week. But yeah, so that's actually something we probably should address in and amongst this story, is that, yeah, we alluded to it earlier, the Batman Arkham stuff. Now, we've seen a WB logo in line with Stadia from day one, when Phil Harrison stood on the stage and went, we're working with all these developers. What does this mean for Stadia? Are we going to see Suicide Squad and whatever this Batman game ends up being on Stadia? Are we going to finally see an Arkham collection, which I've been fingers crossed for so long? We'll find more out at this crap event, Richie, apparently. DC fandom that's in the next couple of weeks. Again, E3 being drawn out. Not that like DC fandom's part of E3, but the gaming announcements have obviously been pigeonholed for that because it's a DC specific event. Fingers crossed, announcer included with Stadia. Be one of those developers who remembers to put the Stadia logo on at the end of the trailer. Yeah. I'll take just that, just to give us a nod that it is coming, and then we can all go crazy with it. And
I'd love to see the Arkham collection come through to Stadia. I think I have them all on PC, but again, there was sort of games that I think I started playing it, then we went on holiday, and then by the time I got back, I'd moved on. So I kind of need. I've always intended to go back to it, but you know, other new games keep coming out, so other things keep.
Yeah, Doom DLC.
So it coming to Stadia, it could be the thing that gets me to sit down and play it.
Superb. Well, hopefully you shouldn't have to wait too long for those announcements, Richie, because they're not that far away. However, some things that are further away now, unfortunately, we have to bring you the unfortunate news that Baldur's Gate 3 won't release in August, in fact, and we still don't have a date for it. But yeah, Larian Studios came out this week with a tweet saying, unfortunately, we'll be announcing the release date. It's big news at the with Jeff Keighley again. Jeff's in there again with it, so they're going to announce the actual date for it. But essentially, it's not coming in August. Does this annoy you guys, or is this one of them things where it doesn't really matter at this point? You're just happy for it to wait until it comes out with Davy Jones and the crew?
I'm happy to wait.
Yeah, likewise. But I'm really liking the fact that Jeff Keighley, being in his position, is getting involved in a lot of these things, because obviously we're in a really sort of like good position of Baldur's Gate 3 coming to Stadia, where it sort of still builds up the hype a little bit of offering a platform choice for people to be able to get the title on. So, more exposure is better, really.
Now, Stadia was going to get this as early access, if I'm not mistaken. So what does this mean? Early access is off the table now, and we're just going to get it at launch, do we think? Or because they've not really mentioned any more detail around that, other than, it won't hit the August date, but it will be out. We'll announce it soon.
I just hope they just scrap early access. I don't like early access as a concept, to be honest. It's like, it feels like I'm having to pay you to basically bug fix your game for you. Like,
what's the difference between early access and a beta?
One you pay for.
One you
pay for. Oh well, yeah.
I saw that. That's the caveat there.
Okay, I prefer betas to that.
Yeah, I'm okay with betas. I have no problems with that. But I don't want it for I'm expecting this to come out by £50-60. I don't want to pay that for a game that isn't done.
But the thing is with early access is you typically do get the game at a cheaper price, and you get access to it early, and you get access to all of the updates as and when they happen. I completely get with you, and I agree with you that the concept about early access isn't so good. But I would say that from an indie perspective, not from a AAA perspective. If you're talking like early access on imagine you could get your hands on FIFA 21, right? For 20 quid, early access, as they're adding things in, as they're adding features in. You're damn right people are going to invest in that, because then you're getting the game for cheaper.
I suppose if you take it by game, it's FIFA, you're kind of expecting a certain amount of quality, so you're kind of being probably more forgiving of the bugs and stuff you encounter. And with something like Baldur's Gate 3, I want my first experience with this game to be a good one.
Good. And I'm glad you brought that point up, because that was going to be my counter argument to my own point, which is the fact that if you do invest in early access, then you obviously have to also remember that you're not getting the final product as well. You are getting something that is unpolished. So you do run the risk, or developers run the risk, of releasing a game on early access where people get it and they go, oh, this doesn't look good, or it doesn't feel good, and they don't stick around for it.
Yeah.
See, something like FIFA, I typically buy every other year or something, and I will play it on and off for about 2 years. So if I got that as half price early access, that's good value for money for me, for the savings. And I just with the caveat that I know, yes, I don't have the final game yet. Yeah. But for something like Baldur's Gate, where I'm probably going to play through it once, then maybe in about a couple of years' time consider going back to it. I want my first experience to actually be a good one. I'm actually a bit more forgiving for early access when it comes to indies, because they tend to have smaller budgets, less money getting thrown at them from the publishers. So sometimes it's the decision they need to make to get the game on the market.
But they're more likely to fail, and they're more likely to be pulled, in which case you've invested in nothing, like a failed Kickstarter. But there's a lot of trade-offs for it.
There's a lot less money involved when in purchasing it. So it's...
But I suppose that takes it back to your point, Richie, where you say that's where the problem with early access comes from, because you don't want to invest in a game that ultimately doesn't come out, let's say.
Yeah, my take on early access is probably from a marketing optics standpoint. A version I've got in my head from that is Ember. So we know Ember Stadia, it's early access. I feel like when it goes in early access, people think it's out already and then forget it's out already, and then when they do the launch, everybody goes, wasn't that game already out? Didn't that game already come out a few months ago? Because in my back of my mind now, I've lost all interest in Ember. And I feel like that's because I know it's been out, some people have played it, I've seen a few streams. What it misses its grand funfair, big grand opening day almost, by being in early access, because it came out, people tried it. I don't think it did amazingly well. And does anyone care anymore? And have they missed that window of opportunity, like the big pitch of it's out now?
I think if they brought it out on Pro, then they might get people jump back into it.
Well, now
I probably would.
Yeah, but now this is just
I'm
back
with
the
you,
argument of all them early access poor people who paid money to play it in early access, and if it comes to Pro, you've just been screwed over again.
Which is why one of the reasons
Yeah.
I don't like early access.
Well,
I
there
think
we go.
again, it depends on the game. And it depends
yeah.
on the hype behind the game, because something like Minecraft, when that went through alpha and beta, gained a lot of interest, and then when it launched, it only just sort of like solidified the success of the game when it first came out.
Very true.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was one in the bag. We have to bring you more delays as well. So we do know that Mafia 2 and 3 definitive editions are coming to Stadia eventually, coming soon, hashtag. But Cloudy Games as well reached out through, he had a source somewhere, which basically contacted 2K support direct and asked about the Mafia Definitive Edition coming out, which is the number one being totally remade from the ground up, even though 2 and 3 are just remasters. Odd way to approach a trilogy of games, in my opinion, but they've done it either way. And essentially, you got a reply saying, actually, the reply. Have you seen the reply, Tom? Because I feel like you would do a really good gangster impression reading this reply out.
I haven't seen it. Let me just see if I can load this up. If you want
the
to
article's in the doc, but I feel like it's got one of your. I could just see you reading this out with your finest gangster impression, if you'd care to.
What, you got a lot of knife poking your head around where it doesn't belong. I mean, it's a terrible accent, but hey.
Keep it going.
I'm really sorry for people I'm offended with that.
You got gangsters. They're going to hunt you down and find you.
I mean, it makes me also think of like that Italian, like that New York Italian sort of like
Simpsons, mafia guys.
But then again, I almost think, is it not just like detective noir style? Like if you think like LA noir style as well. So
almost.
it's just that I did some digging around and found the release kind of.
So essentially, we won't put you on things. So essentially, they contacted 2K support asking about when the definitive edition was coming to Stadia, and they replied back with a tongue-in-cheek Mafia take on things, basically saying, yeah, stop poking your head around where it doesn't belong. Did some digging and found that the release of Mafia on Stadia has been delayed until further notice. I'm sorry that it makes you sad, but your moxie impresses the family. Please keep up to date with our things, Joe, blah, 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 social media. If you've got any more questions, we can mark this ticket as solved. Funny way of approaching it, but it doesn't hurt any lesser that, once again, so the definitive edition has been delayed on Stadia. This is the problem when we don't have dates and roadmaps. We kind of just sit and wait thinking, well, it comes out on other platforms shortly, so that means, oh no, it's been delayed. Fantastic. Yeah. Like, it's not a great game, but where's SpongeBob still? And Destroy All Humans. They're out now in the wild. Everybody else can play them. They were listed as coming to Stadia, and yet here we are several weeks on, just waiting for what, another Connect to say, and it's out now, and it's a pro game. Probably,
when everyone's
maybe.
already finished it on other platforms.
Yeah, it's like it's just frustrating, man.
Yeah,
Frustrating.
of course it is.
I think there's been a lot of delays over the last couple of years, and I think one thing I'm starting to realise is just it's one of the reasons why sometimes we're clamouring for a date and we never get it is probably because publishers are starting to probably be a bit wiser, and like it's hard to predict when a game will actually be ready to launch, and rather than just here's when it's going to launch and then force through that launch, which is when you lead to things like crunch and things which have been absolutely condemned over the last couple of years by the industry. They're probably just being a bit more cautious in that front, just which it's frustrating as a consumer, where I'd like to know to plan my decisions, my purchasing decisions. But if it takes pressure off the developers so they can get a better game out, well, I'm okay with that.
But these two ones in particular,
it's the shadow drops I don't like. That's the caveat. It's when it's like you get told like a week before it comes out, oh, by the way, it's out next week.
Yeah.
There needs to be a balance for me.
How much of this is just down to prioritising Stadia, in all honesty? Like, we look at the smaller studios like THQ who've put out SpongeBob and Destroy All Humans, and their focus has obviously just been the release on the bigger platforms. In Stadia, like not putting a date on it just gives them flexibility to get it out if and when they get around to it, which surely is on Google's onus to push back and say, well, actually, you need to commit to a date when you agree these deals with us as well, whether that involves more money being exchanged or more promises or guarantees. If you need to hit a certain sales threshold and you get money back or discount or whatever it may be. But surely this can't go on. As we approach a year of Stadia, we can't go into its second year still not getting smaller titles day and date. Because then if it starts happening to AAA titles, then the whole stack of cards crumbles, surely.
Yep, definitely.
Because again, if Avengers was delayed from the 4th of September, and that tantalising little Spidey is hanging on a web over there, I'd go there. We've still got that Cyberpunk discussion to have later on when that rolls around. But just add another one to the... so even in-house, internal exclusive games come to Stadia. They also suffer from delays. Serious Sam 4 launches. We do have a date now. It's coming 24th of September, but... is it Crow Team, isn't it? It works on Serious Sam.
Crow Team, yep. Crow Team.
They delayed from August back into September, so we've got it delayed by a month. But they did put a cemented date on it, 24th. It's coming. Another delay. Obviously, we should probably caveat everything with we are well aware of the global pandemic still that is having a delay on all mediums of creativity in stampering people's ability to work from home and work in the studio, and that collaborative efforts I'd imagine become infinitely harder across all the people's homes and networks.
But you can't just if you're working on some art for a game, just go, Derek, can you have a quick look at this?
Yeah.
And what do you think? Like that, then little sort of interactions you're probably missing.
Yeah, completely. And probably all the poor bastards are probably forced to use Microsoft Teams or something at this point, which is available on iOS, funnily enough.
Interesting.
But yeah, another delay. So three delays to bring you this week. Serious Sam.
Excellent.
And actually, saying that, there's another one to add. We've discussed it earlier on, but Doom 2016, is that just infinitely delayed? Just they're working on DLC now, but we are yet to see Doom 2016.
Yeah,
the better of the two.
I feel like 2016 is just done and dusted at this point. Like it's not coming. I wouldn't hold out. Hold out hope for it.
I'd love to know the reason, so because it wasn't removed from Stadia's website as well.
Yeah,
but there's two games that they used to demo Stadia, and there was Assassin's Creed and Doom 2016. So
I'm pretty sure it used to prominently feature at the bottom of like the weekly updates as well. It used to be one of those titles they used to mention. Oh, don't forget Doom 2016 is coming soon, as well as Baldur's Gate 3.
It's weird because we know it runs on the platform because Google literally used it to press developers. Like
they showed it off.
Yeah.
Very
I just don't get it.
It is.
It's just they're just not going to talk about it and hope it goes away.
Well, we know Bethesda are supporting the platform because we've got Doom Eternal this year.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of that, if you're a big fan of Bethesda games that are on the platform, head over to the Stadia store now because there is currently pro deals on left, right, and centre. You could pick up Doom 64 for £1.99. The good old classic Doom 64. Who needs 2016 when you've got 64? Not the year, just the name of the game. Rage 2, Wolfenstein, Elder Scrolls, they're all up there for a heavily discounted rate, so go check those out as well if you do have a Bethesda feeling in your fingers. Final story of the week, gentlemen. Good news to end on. Relicta is now available on Stadia for £15.99 or your respective local currency, probably $20, give or take, €20, however the inflation works back and forth. Either of you interested in checking this out now it's came around, stealth dropped midweek?
I am.
Ooh.
I am, but I'm going to decide what I play next after I finish Ghost of Tsushima. At the moment, you're getting so many games on Pro, it makes me less... And actually, that £10 that I've still got there on my account makes me less inclined to actually go buy a game.
Yeah.
Like
After my massive cock up, I don't blame you whatsoever. Yeah. No, I'm kind of excited about Relicta, actually. I haven't purchased it yet because I'm actually thinking about holding off until September
Pro games
in typical Stadia fashion of waiting to see what the next pro games are first. No, simply because I played through and really enjoyed the Turing test, and it's another game like a la that essentially, like very close to that sort of style, only it uses sort of like gravity for puzzles instead, which again, brilliant concept. So I'll definitely be getting it. It's just a question of when, I suppose.
Yeah, it's kind of the same for me.
Interesting.
Love
Fantastic.
me a puzzle game.
Normally a puzzle game. So that brings us to a weekly wrap-up of your Stadia gaming news from myself, Chris, Tom and Richie. Thank you everyone for tuning in for our discussions about the wonders of Spider-Man, Square Enix agreements, Apple being absolute dicks, a couple of delays on Stadia, but you know what, there's plenty of games to play, and no doubt we'll get some more games stealth drop probably this week to bring you next week. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe down below. We've actually been looking into some of the analytics, and 23% of you viewers, So that's 2 out of 10 or so of you people watching right now. Don't click subscribe, which means you're kept out of the loop when Richie goes and plays Conan on a live stream. When we bring you Strange Brigade this Thursday, hopefully, maybe, possibly, on Stadia, keep checking the channel to watch that. We've made the
Something
graphics.
will happen on Thursday.
We've made the graphics now, Richie, so I'm definitely down to do that. And any stream and any videos we put out similar to the post show, which myself, Tom and Richie are now going to go chat about our favourite Stadia games to date. So what are we on? August now, so we're almost coming up a year, but before this dam breaks and we get AAA games out the eyeballs all over the place, let's talk about what we've loved playing so far on Stadia. So join us in the post show if you are a Patreon member. Remember, you can sub to us over on there at patreon.com/Sounds of Stadia for as little as $1, just $1 or 79p. Gets you in the bag. You get exclusive content. You get the opportunity to send us questions into the show and some private chats and gameplay and stuff with us. Hell, even when Avengers comes out, you could join our Avengers initiative if you wanted to. So thank you very much for watching Sounds of Stadia episode 46. My name's been Chris.
I've been Tom.
I've been Richie.
We've been Sounds of Stadia. Thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Have a good week. Bye.
Bye.